Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, where during the previous evening the President of Ukraine Zelensky made lots of very interesting statements. He said that according to intelligence, the construction of roads toward Ukrainian territory and the development of artillery positions are on the way in the Belarusian border areas. We believe that Russia may once again attempt to drag Belarus into its war. I have instructed the appropriate channels be used to warn the de facto leadership of Belarus about Ukraine's readiness to defend its land and independence. The nature and consequences of recent events in Venezuela should serve as a warning to the Belarusian leadership against making mistakes. We also discussed with the commander-in-chief of our further long-range operations. So these are the statements that were made by Zelensky yesterday, and according to the statements, according to the Ukrainian intelligence, the Belarusians are improving their logistics along the border between the Republic of Belarus and Ukraine itself. So these territories is being improved by Belarusians these days. And Zelensky is saying that the Belarusians are not just improving the logistics, also according to him, the Belarusians are improving and began creating the artillery positions, and the question is, according to Zelensky, why the Belarusians are doing this. So, and to receive an answer to this question, we need to understand what exactly Zelensky didn't say during these statements. And the most important thing, and we have already discussed the situation, we discussed these things several weeks ago. And I would like to remind you once again that these days the Russians are improving their equipment, their communication equipment along the border between the Republic of Belarus and Ukraine, somewhere in this area. The Russians are creating radars, the Russians are building different buildings, different constructions that the Russians use to control and to communicate with their drones when the Russians attack the territory of Ukraine with hundreds of drones during the massive attacks or just regular attacks. So every time when the Russian drones enter the territory of Ukraine from the area of Bryansk, these drones have strong connection, and these drones is controlled by Russians from the territory of the Republic of Belarus using the equipment that the Russians is installed along the southern border of the Republic of Belarus, probably have installed since the beginning of this year. And this equipment on the southern border, along the southern border of the Republic of Belarus, allows the Russians to have strong control over drones, strong signals, which means that the accuracy and the effectiveness of these drones are very, very, very high. So that is why we understand that the Russians most likely think that this is a very good idea to create equipment along the border between Belarus and Ukraine that allows them to have strong signal. So that is why the Russians understand that it is going to be even a better idea and the best idea if they decide to continue the improvement of the border between Belarus and Ukraine almost until the border with Poland. So it seems that this is the plan, this is the original plan of the Russians to create a dense network of facilities and this radars and different equipments along the border between Belarus and Ukraine that will allow the Russians to have a strong signal while attacking the territory of Ukraine, and the Russians with this strong signal and with these communications will be able to attack everything along the border between the Republic of Belarus and Ukraine almost till the border with the NATO countries, with the European Union, with Poland. So basically the Russians will be able to establish complete control over the logistic of Ukraine that goes from the territory of Poland towards the city of Kiev. So this is going to be something like the biggest scale zone through the entire territory of Ukraine, and the Ukrainians most likely will not be able to use these territories for a big logistic. So that is why Zelensky is saying that the Russians are trying to drag the Belarusians into this war. But the most important thing that Zelensky is telling this to us because he understands that he cannot allow the Russians to build this equipment and this communication equipment along the border, and he understands that sooner or later the armed forces of Ukraine would be forced to begin attacking these objects of communication infrastructure along the border between Belarus and Ukraine. He will have to do this because if he doesn't do this, the Russians will be able once again to establish complete control over the logistics of Ukraine in its northern and the northwestern parts, which will obviously lead to unpredictable consequences for the armed forces of Ukraine. So that is why Zelensky is of course sending a message to the president of Belarus to stop doing this, but we understand that nobody is going to stop anything, so which means that in coming months we might see first attacks with drones, maybe under the false flag on this equipment along the border. And this is the reason why the Belarusians began improving their artillery positions along the southern border, because the Belarusians understand if somebody attack the equipment on the territory of its state, then the Belarusians would be forced to strike back. So most likely this is the situation that is currently taking place in this region, which means that the Russians are entering a very interesting phase of the special military operation. Now let's move further and let's discuss the massive attack that took place during the previous nights. According to pro-Ukrainian sources, during the previous nights, the Russians used 219 drones to attack the territory of Ukraine, and lots of explosions were recorded through the night. For example, we have lots of videos from the Chernigov region, and the sources are saying that overnight the Russians attacked objects of critical infrastructure on the territory of the city. I would like to remind you that according to information we have, during the previous days the Russians managed to stop the Chernigov power station. The power station was stopped after a number of attacks carried out by Russians. Furthermore, the Russians destroyed several fuel depots in this area, and furthermore the Russians controlled the situation over the city of Chernigov without problems. And this is another important video that was published from this area. I would like to remind you that the Ukrainians began using fighting mobile groups against the Russian drones, and in this video we can see a fighting mobile group of the armed forces of Ukraine that was trying to destroy the Russian drone that was flying over this area, but the Ukrainians haven't managed to stop the drone, as you can see. But from the other side, the drone didn't detonate, which means that the drone was destroyed, but the fire mobile group managed to survive. Once again, the Chernigov area is located very close to the border with the Republic of Belarus, which means that the Russians have a very strong signal in this area, and they can control drones and they can maneuver them, and which means that the effectiveness of the Russian drones right exactly in this area is very, very high. And we see that the city of Kiev is also located very close to the Republic of Belarus, which means that the Russians in future may improve their signal significantly in this area and can establish complete superiority over the sky of the city of Kiev with drones and probably even with missiles. As for the Ukrainian side, during the previous night, the Ukrainians also attacked deep inside of the territory of Russia, and this picture was published by pro-Ukrainian sources. We see lots of lines, lots of arrows, and according to information we have, around 250 drones were used by the Ukrainians. The Russians this morning stated that overnight they destroyed 258 drones of the armed forces of Ukraine, but at the same time we received several videos and updates that the Ukrainians managed to hit several refineries in the central part of Russia. The sources are saying that the oil refinery in the area of the settlement of Syzran was hit by the Ukrainians. So Syzran oil refinery, we have, as you can see, pictures with the smoke. We can see very black smoke over these oil refineries in the central part of Russia. And the second refinery that was damaged by the Ukrainians is the Samara refinery in the area of the settlement by the name of Novokubishevsk. So this oil refinery was also damaged by the Ukrainians. As of the moment when I started making this video, we still hadn't received videos that can confirm all these attacks and so on, but probably during the upcoming day we will receive everything, and then we will discuss everything in details. Furthermore, we continue receiving updates from the settlement of Tuapse, and here we have that the Russians still haven't managed to stabilize the situation on the territory of the Tuapse refinery. We are still receiving data and videos about fire in this area. I would like to remind you that several days ago the Ukrainians attacked the Tuapse refinery with drones, and as a result of attack, very heavy explosion and fire occurred. So this is the moments when the refinery was attacked, and this is the moments of the morning of the 18th of April of 2026. We see that there are no more black smoke but white smoke but, which means that the situation is still unstable. At the same time, we received the report that Russia's main Black Sea port resumes loading crude at Key Berth. Furthermore, we received the report that the United States of America lifted some sanctions on the Russian oil, and the Russians are allowed to trade with oil that is located in the sea. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 12 hours, we received lots of updates. And first, let's talk about the Sumy direction. Additional changes on the ground were recorded. According to different sources, the Russians improved their positions, and we have adjusted the infiltration areas in this region. The Russians, as we can see, continue advancing further in the direction of the settlements of Krasnopolye, Novodmitrievka, and Nikolaevka. So the clashes for these territories are going to intensify very soon. Furthermore, the Russians improved their positions in the area of the settlement of Miropolye. Additional infiltration zones were added in this direction as well. But according to this configuration, it seems that the settlement of Miropolye will fall very, very soon. The Kharkiv direction. During the previous nights, we received additional updates of how Russians continue bombing and attacking edge positions of the armored forces of Ukraine along the river of Seversky Donetsk, and we had additional confirmations from different sources that indeed, during the previous days, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly in the area of the settlement of Zybina that was captured by Russians yesterday, according to the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, and today we received additional proofs that the Russians are continue advancing in this area towards the settlements of Karaichne, Volokhovka, and Bachkova. So which means that the battle for this biggest forest along the border is going to start very soon, the main part of the battle. Also, if you remember, yesterday we discussed that the Ukrainians, due to the shortage of manpower, began the redeployment of their units and troops from the Kupiansk direction in the direction of the city of Belый Kolodец with the purpose to stabilize the situation. And now we see a shortage of manpower in the Kupiansk direction, and this allowed the Russians to resume their Kupiansk offensive operation. And during the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very interesting changes. First of all, we received the video from the settlement of Kurilovka. In this video, we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians that were moving in this area. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map and we have removed the contested area, and we have removed the infiltration area by improving the positions under control of the armored forces of the Russian Federation. So we see that the Russians continue offensive operation, and obviously there is not so many territories left that are still remain under control of Ukraine or in the gray zone, which means that the Russians most likely during the spring military campaign will have possibilities to finish the battle for the eastern bank. As for the western bank of the river Voskol, we start receiving updates about significant changes on the territory of the city of Kupiansk on its western part. These are the changes. When talking about the northwestern parts of the settlement, we have adjusted the map based on the reports that were published by pro-Russian sources. We have expanded a gray zone in this region, and we have another video published from the most southwestern parts of the city of Kupiansk, from the Yubileyny micro district. And in this video we can see how Ukrainians during the spring period of time, not during the winter but during the spring period of time, were attacking edge positions of the armored forces of the Russian Federation in this part of the settlement. Based on this video, we came to the conclusion that either the Russians improved their positions significantly, have improved their positions significantly recently, or the Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups managed to get to the southwestern part of the city of Kupiansk and to dig in deeper. So we have adjusted this island of resistance in the most southwestern parts of the settlement, and we see that the Russians most likely will use this advantageous situation when the Ukrainians have shortage of manpower in this area with the purpose to finish the battle for the northern Kupiansk direction once and for all. Now let's move further. As for the Slaviansk direction, during the previous 24 hours, lots of updates were recorded. The Russians were bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, but without significant changes. The same situation is taking place in the Konstantinovka direction. Lots of updates of how Russians were bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, but without significant changes on the ground. The Zaporizhzhia direction, another breakthrough is brewing. According to information we have, the Russians currently are focused to concentrate as many as possible soldiers and troops on the Ukrainian side of the river of Volcha. Today we are receiving more and more updates from very reliable sources and from sources affiliated with the group of forces is that indeed the Russians managed to cross the river of Volcha and to take almost under complete control this very big forest to the east of the settlement of Velika Mikhailovka and to the south of Gavrilovka. The Russians right now, according to pro-Russian sources, are concentrated to collect a critical mass along this red line, and from these positions the Russians are planning to attack the settlement of Gavrilovka from the south and the settlement of Velika Mikhailovka from the north. This is something like an unexpected move from the Russian side. It seems that the Ukrainians didn't expect that the Russians are able to cross the river of Volcha. The Ukrainians were relying on this river as a natural barrier, but somehow the Russians, as a result, most likely as a result of a fast lightning attack, managed to do this, and now the Ukrainians are regrouping between the settlements of Velika Mikhailovka and Gavrilovka with the purpose to stabilize the situation, but it seems that the Ukrainians lost the moment. We have covered most of the updates about the situation and the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, and now let's discuss the situation in the Middle East. And the most important update as of the morning of the 18th of April of 2026 is that the Strait of Hormuz is blocked once again. And you know that I didn't believe that the Strait of Hormuz was unblocked yesterday according to Trump and according to different Iranian authorities. Yesterday in the evening I thought I knew that that was just a part of a big financial game because many things happened after the President of the United States of America and the authorities of Iran announced about the unblocking of the Strait of Hormuz. So let's discuss everything in details. First, let's talk how everything started and what was happening next. The most important thing is that the President of the United States of America said that the Strait of Hormuz was unblocked by the United States and Iran, and the Strait of Hormuz was unblocked forever. Iran has agreed to never close the Strait of Hormuz again. It will no longer be used as a weapon against the world. President Donald Trump then he stated that thanks Pakistan and its great Prime Minister and Field Marshal, two fantastic people, for everything that was achieved. Furthermore, the President of the United States of America stated that US will work with Iran to recover its enriched uranium and bring it back to the United States of America. So again, this deal is not tied in any way to Lebanon, but we will make Lebanon great again. So lots of statements were made by the President of the United States of America, and all these statements led to the next things. First of all, oil prices dropped significantly. The oil prices before all these announcements, before all these statements, were on the level of $100, let's say, per barrel for WTI. And after the statements made by Trump and the authorities of Iran, the oil prices dropped significantly till the level of $83 per barrel for WTI. And this situation happened several hours before oil markets closed and financial markets closed, which means that today on the Saturday and tomorrow on Sunday, the prices won't change even if some nightmare happens in the world. The oil prices won't change until the Monday of the 20th of April of 2026, and this is the most important thing. Another important thing that right after all these statements were made, we will start receiving updates that S&P futures surged to a new record high on reports of a second round of US-Iran peace talks. Another important thing, the S&P closes at its highest level on record and official posts its fastest recovery since 1982. So we see that the financial market of the United States of America has added more than $7 trillion since its low on March 30th. So we see that, of course, from one side, this is a very probably good updates about the situation that the economy is recovering. But later we received another important statement. A trader or group made a huge 760 million bets that oil prices will drop just minutes before news broke that the Strait of Hormuz was reopening. So somebody earned lots of money just before all these things happened, right before oil markets and financial markets closed. Another important proof that everything that was happening yesterday with oil and with the Strait of Hormuz were just financial manipulations. This is my opinion. I'm not saying that this is exactly the situation. We need, of course, investigators to make proper investigations. But if you ask my opinion, this is my just opinion. So yesterday we received a very interesting situation from Iran itself. And according to information we have, we need to discuss this in details. Yesterday, the Iranian hardliner lawmaker Morteza Mahmoudi said Iran's foreign minister Arachi would have faced impeachment over his Hormuz reopening tweet if not for wartime considerations, accusing him of repeatedly making ill-timed remarks that harm global oil and energy markets. So as you can see, it seems that was something like a combined action between maybe the United States of America and at least the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iran to make all these statements right before oil markets closed. And it seems that some Iranian authorities from very high top level authorities didn't know that the foreign minister actually would do these statements that allowed the oil market to stabilize, that allowed oil prices to drop significantly, and that allowed a lot of people to earn a lot of money just several hours before oil markets and financial markets closed. And now that nothing happened, nothing changed, we know that as of the morning of the 18th of April of 2026, the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and at least this situation was stated by the Iranian authorities. And before closing of the Strait of Hormuz, they stated if the maritime blockade continues, it will be considered a violation of the ceasefire and the Strait of Hormuz transit road will be closed. And this is exactly what happened this morning. Of course, when the President of the United States of America and the Iranian authorities announced the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, dozens, hundreds of tankers and vessels began moving in the direction of the strait with the purpose to cross this area and to move to their ports of destinations. But they were turned by the Iranian authorities when they approached the Strait of Hormuz, and here we can see this on the video. So this is the beginning, just the tankers began moving, but at some point they began changing their routes back in the direction of the United Arab Emirates and so on. So the Strait of Hormuz is closed, the oil prices are at a very low level, but due to all these things and due to all these violations, we believe that probably even in coming hours, the military buffer zone operation in the southern parts of Lebanon will resume as well. As for Lebanon, according to information we have, the Hezbollah forces managed to recapture some territories, and these are the changes on the ground between the dates. For example, this is the end of the 17th of April of 2026, and this is already the morning of the 18th of April. According to information we have, the Hezbollah forces managed to recover and restore control over the settlement of Binj Bail. This is one of the most important settlements in the southern Lebanon, where the fighting are taking place for. And according to information we have, the Hezbollah forces managed to recapture the settlement of Knyam, which is located in the southeastern parts of Lebanon, which means that the Israelis haven't finished everything they were tasked for. And once again, we expect that the clashes may resume, even maybe in coming hours, and maybe by the time you watch this video, the clashes would already resume. And that's it for today. The Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.